Hello and welcome to another exciting podcast of Boardroom Buddies. So I'm absolutely thrilled this week to introduce our accomplished guest. She's been a force in the legal world since 2004 and worked at some of the largest corporate law firms, representing a diverse range of clients from individuals to small business through to multinationals. But it was a pivotal moment in 2015 that compelled her to reevaluate her own values and priorities, and to move away from climbing the corporate ladder. And it set her on that transformative journey of starting her business. She felt that there was a better way to work with clients, and so she set out to nurture client relationships, guide them through the legal journey, and show the human face of being a solicitor first, and aiming to change the game in the legal profession. She is founder of the innovative law firm HooperHyde, a boutique commercial law firm for business. Catherine is also a podcaster of the Hide and Speak podcast and is soon to launch a new service for clients called Launch Legal, which I will ask her about shortly. In 2022, she was listed as one of the Telegraph and the NatWest 100 female entrepreneurs to watch. She's delivered workshops, and on the 18th of September, so that's next week, we'll be emceeing at the Circle Network's live event in Birmingham. Outside of work, Catherine is a wife and a mom, as well as a business owner, and she loves to travel and spend time with the family. And she's on a mission to simplify and humanise the legal experience for people just like you and me. Mm-hmm. Welcome, Catherine Hyde, to the Boardroom Buddies podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Well, loads of questions come up from that.
Right, that's a lot.
Yeah, I guess the first one is how or what prompted you to start the business?
Yeah, it's a bit of a journey, I think. I obviously worked in the profession for a number of years. Like you said, I've been in the legal profession since 2004, so coming up to 20 years, which is just mind-blowing. How am I that old? But had a great career, early career. I'm really grateful for the firms that I worked for. But a couple of things happened. I think I'd started to get to a point in my career where I needed really to think about whether or not I was going to become a partner of a firm and what that firm might look like. And I could never really find something. And I think this was a subconscious thing at the time, but I couldn't really find a firm that fit with my values. So never really had a role anywhere that inspired me to take that next step.
Yeah.
Obviously 2015, my mum had been ill for a long time, kind of 7 years, with a degenerative brain disease. 2015, she passed away. I'd had one of my two daughters. I found out I was pregnant the day my mum died with my second daughter. Yeah. And I just, that whole experience, I think, of losing a parent just made me reevaluate what I cared about. And I just got to a point where I thought, I don't really care about your billing targets and your chargeable hours targets and filling in your forms to justify my existence. And it just didn't really resonate with me anymore. So at that point, what happened in 2015? I was still working in the legal profession, actually. So I went and worked for a high street firm, thinking maybe, having been in really corporate firms, maybe high street was the way to go. But again, it just didn't really sit right, because there were so many things that the firms were doing in relation to how legal advice was being delivered, the ways we were interacting with clients, how clunky the whole journey and the whole experience felt. And again, had two small children, couldn't navigate my way around having this really high pressured, stressful job and a small family. And, having been through that whole grieving process with my mum and my dad actually starting to become ill, so lots of kind of personal stuff in the mix. So I went self-employed in 2018, thinking maybe this is the answer, because then you get the flexibility over your time and the autonomy over who you work with and that kind of thing. And that was great. Did that for 3 years. But then still, I was still beholden to other people's processes, what their client onboarding experience was, and all of that stuff. And someone actually just said to me, Catherine, why are you not doing this for yourself? Right? You're self-employed. So you've already had a little bit of an insight into what it would be like. I had to find my own clients, I had to network and business develop already. So I just kind of went, actually, I'm never, or at least I wasn't aware at the time of there being a firm that had the kinds of values that I wanted it to have that I could join. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to build this for myself, aren't I? If this is something that I want and feel really compelled, with no basis for it, but really compelled to create, because I feel like it's what the profession needs. I had no idea if it was actually true or not, but I just felt instinctively that was the right thing to do.
But it was what you wanted it to be like, wasn't it?
Exactly. It was what I think I needed at the point in my life that I had all this stuff going on. That I needed the flexibility and to not feel a sense of guilt that I was letting my employer down, or sense of guilt that I was letting my children down because I wasn't there. And and from a client perspective, everything about the experience was the opposite of what I believed in. So for me, I never want a client to feel like they don't understand something. I want a client to feel empowered, because ultimately I'm here to bridge the gap between what the law says and what the client's outcome is. And if I'm not doing that to the extent that the client understands, I'm not doing my job very well. But we were falling down at the first hurdle, because we're saying we help clients bridge that gap, but then we're sending you a 16-page engagement letter that's absolutely baffling. And most people either don't read it because they can't be bothered, or they don't read it because it's too long and they don't understand it. Well, we're falling down at the first hurdle. So simple things like that for me, I needed to change it, because it wasn't, we were talking about, being communicative, and we're all about words, and yet we're not communicating in a way that people understand. And there were small things like that I just went, right, these are the things that I want to change. And I had no idea if that was the right decision in any way, shape or form. It just felt like the right one.
Well, I've looked at some of your testimonials and you're not alone in that thinking. Yes, so exactly. Clients are giving you some great testimonials because it's exactly what they want.
Yes. Yeah.
I think one of the issues when we kind of engage with the law practice is they, like you say, they send that huge contract and T's and C's and all that kind of thing. And you've contacted a lawyer generally as a last minute, oh my God, I need something quickly doing, and and then you get all this document to read, and it's how stressful is that?
And just the process generally. So things, like the anti-money laundering requirements and having to get ID, and it can take you a couple of weeks to get a client signed up. And I was like, what? That's just bonkers. Like you said, actually, clients probably come to us because they're at a point of quite high stress.
Yes.
So if we're then adding on to that, like frustration, and when you're stressed and you're not really thinking straight and everything's getting on your nerves, and we need to actually be making that process easier to engage with, not adding to that already stressful state that you're in.
So you were talking about not having shared values with those companies that you were kind of working as a contractor for, and also when you were in an employed role, and it's really become important, I think, that you're very aware of the values that you have and what you hold as important. It does seem that the larger organizations that I've kind of encountered in the profession, their main aim is to be big, to grow big. And so I don't think they've a hope in hell really of keeping that engagement with individual clients.
And I think for some businesses that experience is fine, like they're happy with the very sort of ultra professional surface level relationship with their lawyers. Or perhaps they want big teams because they're big businesses and need big teams and need lots of people thinking about it, right? So I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I think small businesses make up the majority of the businesses within the UK. So there's a large proportion of businesses that are having or feeling like they're having to engage with these kinds of firms and not getting the kind of support or experience that they want, because ultimately most of these businesses actually are quick thinking, are agile, are owner managed, need that kind of legal support, or business support, whether it's accountants or whatever. They need that match of energy. So they're not engaging with legal advice because they're frustrated by the experience that they're having, but actually they probably should be engaging with legal advice because they're at a critical point in their growth. And they're not doing it because they don't realize that actually there is an alternative. I'm not suggesting that we as a firm or similar businesses are right for everyone.
Yes.
But I think that. There's definitely a space for that more personalized, human, quick thinking, agile experience for people.
I really don't think that when you're a small business that you are going to engage with a law firm because it's a nice to have.
Exactly.
Your first, in my experience, most business owners, micro business owners, their first thought is, oh my God, how much is this going to cost?
Yes, exactly. 100%. Exactly. And that actually ties in quite nicely to Launch Legal, because that's 100% why I am building Launch Legal, because of the fact that there are a lot of startups, micro business owners that can't afford to engage with one-to-one legal advice, and actually probably don't really need it, but they need some level of support and some kind of signposting to the right places. And just these are the kinds of things you need to be thinking about if you're thinking about making this decision. It's almost that extra level of thinking for them, not knowing how to protect your copyright. How do I really do that? It's the types of stuff you're Googling, right? So that was exactly why Launch Legal was born, really, was because there is that section of the business.
So Launch Legal is your new service?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's a free service?
It will be free to start with. Yeah, it will be completely free. In part because I want to get that feedback from people to be certain that what I have built and I'm delivering is actually what is needed.
Right.
I would much rather offer it for free and build what the business community needs and then start charging once I get a sense of what value people are getting out of it. Because for me, it's not just going to be about the delivery of the training. It's about building a community, actually, of business owners who are in it because they want to collaborate with each other. And it will be free initially whilst it's taking its sort of final form. So
what will clients get from it, or people who are not yet clients, perhaps?
So it will be very much, it's a training platform is how I'm describing it. So it will be there'll be 10 core subject areas covering things like terms and conditions. Why do I need them? Why are they important? What should I be looking out for when I'm reading them? What should I have in my own terms and conditions? What does this particular thing mean in them? Do I need to have intellectual property rights in there? Those kinds of things. And then things like, all right, I'm going to take on my first employee. What should I be thinking about? Or I'm using subcontractors. What's important here? What do I really need to understand about copyright law? Someone's using my trademark. What do I do about it? All of those questions that really business owners are asking at some point, probably within the first 2 years of starting, that they're going to Google for ultimately. And then the plan will be to have template documents. So downloadable documentation that people can use, an initial letter chasing an unpaid invoice, for example.
A
standard set of terms and conditions for a service-based business, those kinds of things. So there won't be any bespoke one-to-one legal advice, but it's a space for people to get their legal compliance right, basically. So things like why do I need a website policy? What do I need to really know about GDPR or data protection? Those kinds of things.
Right. Okay. Well, that sounds really interesting. And how useful.
Yes, well, I hope so. That's all. My aim is always to try to serve, right? So how can I take the expertise that I have, or the network of experts that I have, and help other people not, at the very least, fall down on those really basic things that they should be getting in place when they start up, or prevent them from worrying about them.
Because there is yes, we all Google, what do I need for whatever, and that kind of thing, but and maybe it's just me, but I always think can I trust this information?
Yeah. And are you going down the right rabbit hole?
Yes.
This is the thing, because it's like you could end up on one website, but what website is it? Who's written it? What are they saying to you? And where is it then sending you after that?
Yeah.
Are you just going down a rabbit hole of, way too much detail than you need to know?
Yes.
Whereas Launch Legal will very much be very short, 2-minute maximum videos answering each of the kind of key questions that people are asking about that core subject.
Yeah.
With transcripts, just in case people prefer to read over watch. But it's very much a case of the answer to your question as quickly and as efficiently as possible, so that you don't end up going down a rabbit hole and actually becoming more confused than you were when you started.
And actually that kind of just prompted my thought then, that a bit like artificial intelligence, people will be, I guess, going on to AI and whatever one they're using, write me terms and conditions. But how do we know they're correct for our country, that particular sector or whatever?
Yeah. Or does it have things in there that just aren't relevant to you? Or is there not enough detail in there, but you're relying on it too heavily and realize that it's not really protecting you in the way that your business runs? It's great. Don't get me wrong, AI is great for starting you off on things, but I think it should never be used, not yet anyway, for the final product.
I don't like the thought of it being used to the final product, I have to say.
I mean, so I had to play about with it for a contract review, and it did an all right job, but it definitely missed out some quite significant detail on the contract that it wasn't hugely detrimental, but ever so slightly changed the meaning or the understanding of how it summarized that particular section. So like I said, I think it's great for starting you off on things, but I'm not sure it should at this point in time really be used for the final product. I think you still want that human checking.
Certainly if it's producing content or text for you. I've noticed it doesn't speak like I speak.
This is it. Exactly.
So oh, okay. So outside of work then, I know you've got family, got kiddies, and
2 daughters.
And you like to travel and go on holiday, and I know you've recently been on a great holiday.
We went on the Disney cruise, which people have asked me how it was, and the only way to describe it is exhausting and exhilarating. I mean, you can imagine it was Disney 24/7. You can't get bored on this cruise ship. But sometimes you almost want to be bored. Do you know what I mean? It was a lot. I think because it was our first experience, we spent a lot of the time kind of figuring out where everything was, how things worked. And I think if we went again, that experience would probably be very different because we would know how things worked. But it was phenomenal. I just absolutely incredible.
I took my daughter, I think she was about 10 or 11, to Disney in America years ago.
Right.
Well, it is years ago. She's 37 now. And I think I enjoyed it more than she did.
Really?
So I came back feeling exhilarated, but also it was just magical.
I mean, there's nothing they don't think about. Isn't there a book called the Walt Disney Way or something like that, and it's about how they deal with like the customer experience and what's important to them, and it's supposed to be a really good book. I can't profess to have read it, but it's supposed to be amazing. And having experienced Disney, I think there's nothing they don't think of. There was nothing that we wanted for that they couldn't deliver on. And I'm celiac, right? So I have to have gluten-free, and it was pretty much anything that you want, we can make it gluten-free. You just have to wait a little bit of time for it. So I was like, whoa, I'm going to test this theory then. So everything, I could just have it as gluten-free. It was pretty impressive, considering we were on a boat as well.
Yes. Fantastic. And 2 girls you've got, I think.
Yes. So Ellie is 9 and Matilda is 7.
I guess they loved it too.
Oh, amazing. I mean, let's be honest, when you're 7 and 9 and you can pretty much spend all day swimming whilst watching Disney films on a massive screen. I mean, what's not to love about that? And going to the kids club without your parents and, please yourself. Yeah, it was, they lived their best life for 4 days for sure.
Wonderful. Yeah. So family life, I know, is always busy when you're a working mum, and particularly running your own business. Do you have hobbies? Do you like to get out and...
So I think my hobbies tend to be things that slow the pace or don't require my mental capacity hugely. So things like painting and yoga, and I like going to jewelry making workshops, and it's sort of the polar opposite of my day job. Because I just spend a lot of time using my brain, and sometimes I'd like to do something that just doesn't require it in the same way. We spend a lot of time outdoors with the kids, going for walks, and just going to the park and being outside. I get a huge amount from. I really love to be outside. Don't even mind if it's raining. It's just that sort of fresh air.
I remember when we had lunch, you were talking about you actually really to just get out and do stuff outside. So tell me about the emceeing next week then.
So I don't know why.
NatWest Live.
I'm not entirely sure why Jamie decided to ask me. I've never co-hosted anything similar in my life. I have no idea if I won't just completely fall to pieces. However, Jamie clearly saw something in me and felt that I was a suitable candidate to stand up there with him that day and support him with his event. But to be honest with you, I'm really excited about it. And secretly, I do quite fancy being a public speaker. I've no idea what I would speak about, quite frankly, but I do quite fancy the idea. And I think this would potentially be a nice way of testing that out. How nervous am I going to be? Am I going to come across in the right way? I don't know. It's really exciting. I'm really excited about it.
You always do, because your podcasts are all, always nice and relaxed, engaging. So I think you'll be great.
Fingers crossed. Ask me that on Tuesday morning. I'm like crying because it was awful. No, I think it will be fine. I think I will be worse than I am. That's typically what happens. I think we're always so much more self-critical, aren't we?
One of the things I've learned is that when you are presenting, you don't have to be word perfect. And in fact, people will connect with you and engage with you, feel that connection much better if you are human rather than so polished like perhaps a news presenter on the BBC,
like an auto cue type scenario.
So I think people want to see the human. And years ago I remember listening to someone about presentations, and he said the best thing you can do is to trip up, because as soon as you trip up, the audience, although they might titter a bit, actually feel that they're human.
Like you're not perfect either, kind of. It can be a bit intimidating, I suppose, can't it? But I'm really excited about it. I think it'll be a great day of some brilliant speakers. So so we'll see.
Sounds really exciting. Okay. So what sort of clients do you work with? What's your kind of ideal client, if there is one?
I think ideal clients is about their values. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is from a sort of client avatar perspective, generally service-based businesses. So, we act for a handful of facilities maintenance companies. We've got marketing agencies. We don't tend to look after sort of wholesalers or retailers and that kind of thing. But then from a values perspective, it's sort of, owner managed, quick thinking, want to make a decision quickly, want that personal relationship with their lawyer, want a human being on the other end of the phone. It's just open to a collaborative relationship rather than one where they are either intimidated by us or the opposite, where they think they can be rude to us just because they're paying our bills. I'm not up for that kind of relationship. I'm up for just, you're paying us and we are here to help you get the best out of the situation that you find yourself in. You know, that's vital to me. But yes, so small businesses generally, although I do look after some micro businesses and a couple of medium sized, but I think the sweet spot is really the small business, because they're at a certain size, growth, they value the ongoing relationship with their legal advisors. And just building that long-term relationship really is one of the key things for me, because we can help clients so much better when we understand their business and what it's like day to day, rather than just dipping in and out at key points over 5 years, for example.
Because it's lonely, isn't it? A single, you know, business owner, solopreneur, or business owner of a micro. And I think it's quite challenging to ring up a law firm and start to speak to a corporate type lawyer. It's much better to kind of engage with somebody like yourself and have that ongoing relationship.
And the assumption is that they'll be on the clock. Majority of my clients aren't hourly rate clients for that reason, because I want them to phone me because they need to ask me a question, not because they worry that phone call is going to cost them X amount of pounds. They need to just pick up the phone to me. Or, you know, I've got clients who I do specific project work for, and they just, you know, if they phone me and it's a 5-minute conversation, I don't bother to charge for it, because, you know, I record the time and I record the conversation, but I don't bother to raise a bill, because, you know, it's the admin for me as much as it is, you know, them worrying about being on the clock, you know, and especially if it's actually a question that they could probably find the answer to themselves if they just Googled it. You know, I don't know that I'm necessarily adding a huge amount of value other than answering the question that they could have found for themselves. So I'm just not up for that whole sticking people on a clock thing.
That's very different. Different. So
I don't want a client to ever receive a bill they weren't expecting, to be shocked by the bill when it does land. Like that just doesn't add to the relationship. It actually takes away from it. And I'm here for that. I'm here for long-term, sustainable, collaborative relationships with clients. And that's, you know, you shoot yourself in the foot by doing that, I think.
So is it like a subscription arrangement?
So some clients are on a subscription. Some clients are specific project work, so things like terms and conditions reviews, drafting them, or, you know, some kind of commercial contract they've received, service level agreements, that kind of thing. And then obviously we have clients who are on fixed fee, debt recovery, you know, breach of contract claims, that sort of thing. But even with those types of things, where possible, we do fixed fees for that kind of work. So often, particularly with dispute resolution, it's often on the clock. Well, you know, you can give a client a fee estimate, but then, you know, it could just go out of the window. Whereas for us, I would rather actually have taken the hit for the fact that we haven't priced it properly, but have a happy client, versus turning around to them and saying, oh, actually, I know we quoted you £5,000, but now it's 10. You know, that's a big difference. I think it's on me to make sure that I'm pricing it right, not on you to pick up the fact that I haven't priced it right. You know, you wouldn't get that with a marketing agency, for example. A marketing agency you go to and you say, right, I want this specific project done, and they'll give you a fixed fee. So why as lawyers can't we do that? Well, we can, we just don't want to, because we want to basically, and ultimately it boils down to clients having to pay for lawyers' inefficiencies.